making headlines tonight. The National Assembly president receives the US ambassador and says Cambodia-US relations will continue to develop fruitfully. Prime Minister Hun Sen receives the ASEAN gavel ahead of the country's chairmanship of the regional bloc in 2022. And after months of restrictions, the popular Drum restaurant and pub gets ready to take back the night from next week. This is the Daily Roundup on the EAC News Channel. A very good evening to you. I'm Andrew Barnes-Roberts. National Assembly President Heng Samrin says Cambodia's relationship with the US will continue to develop. He made the remark at the National Assembly on Thursday morning during a visit by US Ambassador W. Patrick Murphy. Relations between the US and Cambodia have been strained in recent months, but after this week's ASEAN-US summit, things appear to be getting back on track. National Assembly President Heng Samrin welcomed US Ambassador W. Patrick Murphy on Thursday morning. Heng Samrin praised the ambassador for his efforts in carrying out his diplomatic mission over the past 2 years, saying he had boosted cooperation in many fields between the two countries and promoted progress. He told the ambassador that he believes the more than 70-year relationship between Phnom Penh and Washington will continue to develop more fruitfully. In turn, the ambassador congratulated the royal government on its vaccine rollout and its gradual reopening of the economy. He told Heng Samrin that the US has been active in Cambodia's health sector, most especially during the COVID-19 outbreak, with the US donating more than 1 million doses of Johnson & Johnson vaccine through the COVAX initiative. The meeting ended with the National Assembly president thanking the US for providing development assistance to Cambodia, while encouraging Washington to continue providing scholarships and training opportunities for young Cambodians, with the kingdom prioritizing a knowledge-based economy. Prime Minister Hun Sen has symbolically received the ASEAN chairmanship gavel from Brunei. Cambodia will actually assume the chairmanship in January. Thursday afternoon's online event marked the end of a busy week for the Prime Minister, attending no fewer than 11 events and meetings related to the 38th and 39th ASEAN summits. EAC News reporter Reo Soko has the details.
A symbolic end to a week of dialogue. Prime Minister Hun Sen receives the ASEAN gavel from Brunei's Sultan Haji Hassan Al Bolkiah. It symbolizes the handing over of the ASEAN chairmanship, although Cambodia's tenure will begin only in January. 2022 will be the third time Cambodia has been ASEAN chair after 2002 and 2012. It also comes at a pivotal time for the region as it slowly reopens after 2 years of COVID-19 restrictions and gets its respective economies back on track. The pandemic has been a theme running through the various ASEAN summits, which started on Tuesday. Not just within ASEAN itself, but also with its dialogue partners such as Australia, China, the European Union, India, Japan, South Korea, Russia, and the United States. Multilateralism and peace have also been recurring themes in the Prime Minister's remarks. Cambodia was the last country to become a member of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations in 1999. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Hun Sen urged ASEAN leaders to fast-track the entry of Timor-Leste. It has been waiting to be an ASEAN member since 2011. By building stronger relationships with ASEAN and its partners, the Prime Minister hopes this will help the kingdom's economy bounce back stronger than ever. Key to this is the country's reopening, which the Prime Minister reiterated on Thursday will be done in stages, starting with the vaccine tourism program, which gets underway at the end of November in Sihanoukville and Darasakor in Koh Kung. Siem Reap will be able to welcome fully vaccinated tourists back from January. Reyes Soko, EAC News.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has pledged to maintain Asia-Pacific peace during the 18th ASEAN Indian Summit, held on Thursday. The summit was attended by Prime Minister Hun Sen. One of the important agenda was the approval of the Joint Declaration on the Cooperation ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific. It was also acknowledged during the meeting that despite the severity of COVID-19 cases in India and in the ASEAN countries, The cooperation between the two parties remains good and progressing. The ASEAN leaders have expressed gratitude to India for its COVID-19 support. India is one of the countries manufacturing vaccine against COVID-19, especially the AstraZeneca vaccine. Apart from the vaccine, India has also contributed $1 million to the ASEAN Fund for the COVID-19 crisis. All leaders have recognized the year 2022 as the Year of ASEAN-Indian Friendship, as it marks the 30th anniversary of the ASEAN-India Dialogue Partnership. The ASEAN-India heads of state have recognized the importance of strengthening cooperation on ASEAN connectivity, especially the efforts to further promote the ASEAN Connectivity Master Plan 2025. Yuri Matosco, EAC News.
The flooding in southern Phnom Penh is getting worse. On Wednesday night, the army ordered the evacuation of more residents as the water level of the Prek Tanaut River continued to rise. The worst hit districts are Dankour and Kambol. In certain communes, the electricity has now been cut off as a precaution against electrocution. So far, 3,000 families have been affected. EAC News reporter Yuri Matosco has the latest.
The Dankour and Kambol district administrations have released reports on the number of affected families. As of Wednesday evening, 3,200 families have been identified as flood victims, amounting to some 12,000 people. Commander of the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces, General Hun Manet, has dispatched some rescue teams from the Special Military Zone and the Army Forces Command. They will be assisting the evacuated families and be on standby for further rescue efforts, with water levels showing no sign of dropping and more heavy weather forecasts over the next few days. Electricité du Cambodge has cut off the power supply in the most heavily affected areas in Dankour. A technical team will be dispatched when the water recedes to restore connections. Yuri Matosco, EAC News.
Cambodia has hosted a regional workshop on human rights. It was in collaboration with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. The CHRC says the insights gathered from Thursday's workshop will be used to establish a national human rights institution in Cambodia based on the Paris Principles. The hybrid workshop was attended by the United Nations and other human rights institutions from ASEAN member states. EAC News reporter Reo Soko was there.
The Cambodian Human Rights Committee says human rights are at the core of the Kingdom of Cambodia's structure and existence. CHRC President Keo Remy has stressed that the royal government has recognized and ratified 8 core international human rights instruments in the kingdom. Remy recalls that the decision to create the National Human Rights Institute in line with the principles of the Paris Peace Agreement started way back in July 1997. He says Prime Minister Hun Sen signed a sub-decree appointing a committee to prepare and draft a law that would see NGOs take responsibility for the work. Fast forward to September 2006, and the National Conference of the CHRC and ASEAN Human Rights Mechanism Working Group was held. Prime Minister Hun Sen again bringing up the establishment of a National Human Rights Institution. But until 2019, no significant results were produced by NGOs, and so the path led to Thursday, with the CHRC coming together with the OHCHR, the Asia-Pacific Forum based in Australia and other human rights institutions from across ASEAN. It is hoped that the goal of establishing a national human rights institution will finally be realized.
We are on the way, on the process to review the draft law so that we get the consultation from various stakeholders, NGO, and political party and other institutions. And after we collect all input, we will bring all input on the table, and we will invite OHCHR, APS representative, and Cambodian Human Rights Committee member to choose what input that we insert in the draft law. And then we will discuss the final draft before we submit to the Council of Ministers and National Assembly for vote.
CHRC President Keo Remy has emphasized that Article 31 of Cambodia's constitution explicitly recognizes the United Nations Charter and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, as well as other international human rights covenants and conventions. The royal government of Cambodia is working hard to further strengthen the human rights situation in the country. With the regional workshop conducted on Thursday, it is hoped that soon Cambodia will have its very own National Human Rights Institution. Reyes Soko, EAC News, Phnom Penh.
Cambodia's Disability Action Council is encouraging governors around the country to enhance inclusiveness for persons with disabilities. The General Secretariat of the National Council for Persons with Disabilities partnered with the United Nations Development Programme on Thursday morning to organise planning skills training for the Disability Action Councils in 5 of the Kingdom's provinces. The head of the Australia-Cambodia Cooperation Programme for Sustainable and Equitable Services also attended the meeting. EAC News reporter Yuri Matosko has more.
Thursday's morning training event was opened by Secretary of State for the Ministry of Social Affairs, the Secretary General of Disability Action Council, M. Chan Makara. The planning skills training was for Disability Council members of Kampong Spoon, Kampong Cham, Tibong Kumon, Siem Reap, and Battambang. According to M. Chan Makara, the planning skills training will help the kingdom develop specific cooperation plans when it comes to requesting funds from provincial and municipal administrations for projects and upgrades designed to improve the quality of life for persons with disabilities in the kingdom.
Indeed, the remarkable achievements of the disability sector in recent years have been achieved thanks to the efforts and commitment of the Royal Government of Cambodia to ensure the quality of life of persons with disabilities are improving day by day. Despite the circumstances of the spread of COVID-19, the disability sector is still doing well.
Thursday training focused on key topics, including understanding a plan, recalling roles and responsibilities, and developing resource thinking for monitoring and evaluation. Head of the Australia-Cambodian Cooperation Programme for Sustainable and Equitable Services, Anne Ruth Kiev, was also present. She hopes that Thursday's training will contribute to the development of national strategic plans as well as plans focused on persons with disabilities. Yuri Matosko, EAC News.
Cambodia's daily COVID-19 figures remain at levels not seen for almost 7 months. The daily death toll also continues to fall. On Thursday, the Health Ministry confirmed just 109 new COVID-19 cases by way of PCR tests. That number has not been that low since 97 cases were reported way back on the 7th of April. 8 more deaths have been reported overnight, though. There have been 272 patients discharged in the past 24 hours, taking the number of active cases down to just 1,384. The latest stats take the kingdom's total COVID-19 case count to 118,220. The death toll has reached 2,766. The number of patients treated successfully has climbed to 114,063. A young man in Battambang has been arrested after threatening police. Wielding a knife and apparently on drugs, he hopped onto the roof of a police vehicle in the province's Cambodian district. The EAC News reporter Yuri Matosko has the story.
The disturbance was reported on Wednesday afternoon. 23-year-old Man Sokun from Popial Kai village in Timor Kul district climbed onto the top of a police vehicle that was patrolling the Cambodian-Thai border of Dong International Gate in Battambang's Cambodian district. District Police Inspector Colonel V. Kim Jot has stated the incident happened when the young man was traveling from his home to the border gate with the intention of crossing into Thailand. When he was refused entry, he pulled a knife and hopped onto the police vehicle's roof, threatening the officers. He was apprehended when he jumped off the car's roof and made a run for the border. He is now being detained by Cambodian District Police pending criminal proceedings. Yuri Matosko, EAC News.
Before we move on to international news, EAC News does need to set the record straight. It's been brought to our attention that our story on Tuesday night, in which we stated that the extraordinary chamber in the courts of Cambodia will permanently close at the end of 2022, is in fact incorrect. While it is true that the National Assembly has approved a draft law that paves the way for the court's closure and that legal proceedings are expected to have been concluded by the end of 2022, the court will then move into a transition period while it winds down operations. This process is expected to take a few years. EAC News regrets the error. Well, now for a look at news making international headlines this Thursday, the 28th of October.
Dozens of indigenous people have been arrested after mass protests in Ecuador. Demonstrators are unhappy at economic policies of the country's conservative president Guilherme Lasso, days after he raised gasoline prices. 5 police officers were injured and 2 members of the armed forces were being held by a community in northern Quito, but were unharmed. 37 people were detained for blocking roads. The Ecuador Confederation of Indigenous Nations has confirmed that demonstrators had been injured but did not give a figure. Police used tear gas in the capital amid clashes with protesters, while officers on horseback blocked the entrance to the plaza that had been the marchers' destination. Elsewhere, indigenous groups blocked the roads that connect Quito to the country's north, and others in various Andean provinces were closed. Lasso, an ex-banker who took office in May, scrapped the planned incremental rises in gasoline chargers, meant to eventually align with international causes, following pressure by indigenous and other organizations. But unions and other groups want Lasso to freeze prices at lower rates and exempt sectors hit hard by the pandemic. Gasoline costs have risen significantly since Lasso's predecessor, Lenín Moreno, began monthly increases in May 2020.
Where mighty glaciers once spilled into Swiss valleys like frozen rivers of ice, a residue of gray scree in boulders remains, spliced through with raging streams. The new Swiss glacier inventory reports that glaciers in Switzerland are shrinking rapidly due to climate change. More than 500 Swiss glaciers have already vanished. The government said back in 2019 that 90% of the remaining 1,500 will go by the end of the century if nothing is done to cut carbon emissions. The Rhone Glacier, one of the 50 biggest and dominant glaciers in the European Alps, covering a significant part of Switzerland, has lost more than 1.5 kilometers since the mid-19th century, leaving only 7.8 kilometers of the frozen river remaining. What's left is melting dramatically. Experts believe climate change could disturb water cycles throughout Europe and will have an indirect consequence on wildlife and plants. The retreat of the Rhone Glacier is expected to have a major impact on water levels, possibly raising them initially as the ice melts, but depleting them long-term. With regard to adaptation and transition to cleaner energy, Switzerland is slowly embracing wind power as an alternative. Europe's highest wind farm with 3 turbines at more than 2,200 meters above sea level was opened in 2016. It provides power to nearly 3,000 households.
And as technology soars, a Japanese startup hopes to persuade wealthy consumers to swap their supercar for a $680,000 Hoverbike, which went on sale on Tuesday. Meanwhile, in Rome, a prototype of German aviation startup Volocopter's electrical air taxi went on display at Rome's Fiumicino Airport on Wednesday, as the airport looks ahead to 2024, when they hope the public will be able to travel on the battery-powered passenger aircraft. The flying taxi, which looks like a tiny helicopter, has an electrical vertical takeoff and landing in so-called vertiports. It has a luggage compartment and a capacity of 2, giving travelers an emission-free way to beat traffic. It runs on 18 motors that are powered by 90 rechargeable batteries. Volocopter says it is 4 times quieter than an actual helicopter. It will be operational in 3 years and able to take passengers from the airport to the center of the Eternal City in around 15 minutes, a journey that currently takes around 45 minutes by taxi.
Stay with the Daily Roundup. Coming up after the break, a look at the day's sports news. EAC News fully supports the Royal Government of Cambodia's preventative and administrative measures against COVID-19. But we need you to play your part in helping bring the 20 February community transmission event to an end. Wash your hands regularly, sanitize wherever possible. Keep an eye on your body temperature. Use the Stop COVID QR code and maintain a safe social distance. But above all, please, 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 wear a mask. Only together can we beat COVID-19. EAC News' audience is growing. Our YouTube channel has over 150,000 verified subscribers. To mark the milestone, we've received the Silver Creator Award from YouTube. It's given to channels with over 100,000 subscribers. YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki says the award celebrates EAC News' hard work and incredible achievement. She says we've brought a unique voice and style to the world, but have also created valuable connections and built a community along the way. The next milestone we're going for is 1 million subscribers, and we'd really like that Gold Creator Award. So if you're not already a subscriber, head to YouTube and search for EAC News. Subscribers get alerts when the Daily Roundup is premiering and live events are streaming. Get all the latest breaking news and updates from Cambodia in English. The EAC News channel on YouTube. Cambodia made clear. If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear. As was widely anticipated, Barcelona has sacked Ronald Koeman after Wednesday's 1-0 La Liga defeat at Rayo Vallecano. The deeply unpopular coach has been responsible for a long losing streak and only on Wednesday said he believed he still had a future at the club. Not so much. Barcelona issued a statement within hours of Wednesday's game saying that it had relieved Ronald Koeman of his duties as first-team coach. Wednesday night's loss was the final straw. Koeman was given the news directly by club president Juan Laporta. He'll say his goodbyes to the club during a training session on Thursday. Barcelona are 9th in La Liga on 15 points from 10 games, 6 points behind leaders Real Madrid, who beat them 2-1 at the Nou Camp last Sunday. They're not doing much better in the Champions League either, 3rd in their group with just 3 points from 3 matches. Barcelona are 5 times European champions, and the results mark the first time in the club's history that they failed to score in their opening 2 European games. Koeman spent 6 years with Barca as a player before being brought back as coach in 2020. Now that he's gone, the search is on for his replacement. Local media reports suggest that former midfielder Xavi Hernandez, who is currently in charge of Al Sadd in Qatar, and Belgium coach Roberto Martinez are the front-runners. It would seem there's still uncertainty about how Australia will be treating unvaccinated tennis players for January's Australian Open. On Wednesday, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison said that unvaccinated players would be allowed to enter the country if they underwent 14 days of quarantine. But that's not what his Immigration Minister Alex Hawke said last week. According to him, players would have to be fully vaccinated. There's even been talk of granting permits to unvaccinated players so that they can avoid quarantine. But that's been slammed by the state of Victoria, where the tournament will be played. At the moment, the situation is as clear as mud.
Just who will be playing here in January and under what arrangements is anyone's guess. Australia just can't seem to make its mind up about whether unvaccinated players, and there are lots of them, will even be allowed into the country to play in the year's first Grand Slam. Prime Minister Scott Morrison spoke to reporters on Wednesday and contradicted his own immigration minister, who wants everyone entering the country to be fully vaccinated.
Well, the same rules have to apply to everyone. If I wasn't double vaccinated, when I got home from Glasgow, I'd be doing 2 weeks of quarantine in Sydney. So the same rules apply to everyone, whether you're a Grand Slam winner, a Prime Minister, a business traveller, a student or whoever. Same rules. The states will set the rules about the quarantine as they are.
There's even been talk of granting permits to unvaccinated players or those who refuse to reveal their vaccination status, like world number 1 Novak Djokovic. Those permits would waive quarantine rules, but that's been flatly rejected by Victoria Premier Daniel Andrews, who is vehemently opposed to letting unvaccinated people into the country without undergoing quarantine.
We've got I think, the greatest tennis facility in the world. Victorian taxpayers have supported the redevelopment, which is still ongoing, of that facility. It is, I think, the best Grand Slam venue anywhere in the world. That's what all the international tennis people tell me every year when they're here for it. So I think it's highly unlikely that anybody else is going to be hosting that event. We will be hosting that event, but we will not be applying for an exemption for unvaccinated players to come here. And that is the only fair thing to do.
Victoria's position is a blow for Tennis Australia, who won the strongest field possible for the tournament. Australia's borders have been effectively sealed for 18 months due to the pandemic, although authorities have approved the travel exemptions for special cases.
Chinese Vice Premier Han Zheng has attended the ceremony of the 100-day countdown to the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics. He unveiled the Olympic medals, which are to be named Tongxin, meaning together as one. The medal reveal was the key event as Beijing started its 100-day countdown, with the Winter Games set to open on Friday the 4th of February. There were more people in suits than tracksuits at the medal unveiling, with Han Zheng also a member of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the Communist Party of China's Central Committee. He's also head of what's known as a leading group for the 24th Winter Olympic Games. He was joined by Olympic champions Yang Yang and Zhang Yufei in unveiling the Olympic medals. They feature 5 concentric rings embodying the traditional Chinese philosophy of harmony between heaven, earth, and human beings. They also echo the 5 Olympic rings carved in the inner circle, as well as the Olympic spirit of uniting the world through sport. The medals carry on the concept of jade from the 2008 Games, which underline Beijing as the first city to host both the Summer and Winter Olympics. The surrounding grooved rings are engraved with the Games' official title, along with cloud and snowflake patterns. The reverse side has the Beijing 2022 emblem at its heart, with the official name of the Games carved in Chinese below. The surrounding rings mimic star trails, with 24 dots representing the 24th edition of the Winter Olympics. The general picture, which resembles a celestial map, carries the wish that athletes will achieve excellence and shine like stars at the Games, which open in February next year. All right, let's have a look at how the weather's looking for tomorrow's public holiday. And finally, while Phnom Penh City Hall announced on Thursday that the capital's bars, KTVs and nightclubs would remain shuttered for a further 14 days, the easing of other restrictions in recent weeks has given everyone a sigh of relief to know that the new normal is on its way. Restaurants were particularly pleased earlier this month when the ban on alcohol sales was lifted and the limit on gatherings was raised from 15 to 50. It's all great news for the Drum Restaurant and Pub in Ras Sai Kyaw, where the stage has been quiet for the past 8 months. But that's all set to change from Monday next week. EAC News reporter Yuri Matosko has the story.
The popular drum will be beating again next week. Its band will be back on the stage thanks to the lifting of the ban on the serving of alcohol and the increase in the number of people who can gather for an event. The stage has been quiet since the start of the 20 February community transmission event. The decision was taken to close the popular restaurant at night, but now the team at the Drum Restaurant and Pub is ready to welcome patrons back to enjoy the tunes of a live band over a great meal and a bottle of beer or a glass of wine. The Drum's general manager sat down with EAC News and spoke of his excitement for the return of nightlights and music.
We are excited to welcome our customer come to have full entertainment with good quality services. We have a good food, we have a good drinks inside here, and we have a live band, we have a popular singer. So this full entertainment, we provide a premium service to our customer. Besides this, we never forget about the protection with the COVID-19. Customer come, they need to show us the card, the vaccine cards, and our staff wearing masks. And also we arrange the table and chair with proper distance to ensure customer enjoy and feeling comfortable in the Drum Restaurant and Pub.
He says the government's vaccination campaign has created trust that the country is finally on track for a new normal.
Our government already controls by vaccines, injections. And currently, people become more confident on our government. So people become more confident to go outside for breakfast, lunch, and dinner better than stay at home as before. With our Drum and Restaurant, Pub and Restaurant, we expect our customer will come again to enjoy with breakfast, with lunch, especially dinner, that we provide full excitement and premium service to them. And one more thing, I would like to motivate and also suggest to our customer, please trust us for reopening that. We will provide full safety service.
The Drum Restaurant and Pub is located on Street 598 opposite the Phnom Penh Police Commissariat in Ras Kel. It's open every day from 6 in the morning until midnight. Yuri Matosco, EAC News.
Thank you for watching the Daily Roundup here on the EAC News channel. You'll get more breaking news and updates from our website. Head to www.eacnews.asia. You can also search for EAC News on Telegram and at your favorite app store. Coronation Day tomorrow, EAC News taking the break. We will be back with the weekly Roundup on Saturday night at 8. I will see you then.